Akron, Ohio in early summer feels ordinary in the best way. The streets hum with routine, neighbors wave from driveways, and days stretch long beneath a steady sun. It is the kind of place where people know one another's habits, where small changes do not go unnoticed. That is why the silence surrounding 68-year-old Mary Kay Katie Wohlfarth quickly felt out of place. Katie was known for her gentle rhythm of life. Friends described her as kind, steady, and endlessly curious about the past. She had spent years collecting antiques, each item telling a quiet story that appealed to her patient nature. She lived independently, confident and capable, moving through her days with the grace of someone comfortable in her own company. To those who knew her, reliability was her signature. When she said she would call, she did. When she promised to visit, she arrived. In mid-June of 2019, those familiar patterns stopped. Family members began to notice unanswered calls and unreturned messages. Her phone rang without response. Her friends grew uneasy when she failed to show up for a planned outing. At first, they thought perhaps she was busy or resting, but unease began to gather like clouds before a storm. On June 17th, her family filed a missing person report with Akron police. Katie's home appeared undisturbed, but her vehicle, a van she often used for antique shows and errands, was gone. Investigators noted that there were no immediate signs of foul play, yet something about the stillness of her home spoke louder than any evidence. It was as if a familiar chapter had suddenly ended mid-sentence. Officers began tracing her last known movements. Friends offered timelines, family members recounted her recent plans, and neighbors described the last time they saw her. For a woman as dependable as Katie, even a single missed day carried weight. By the second day of her disappearance, the sense of normal life in Akron began to feel thinner, more fragile. The city that once felt safe now held unanswered questions. Where could she have gone, and who might hold the key to her disappearance? 2 days later, the search would lead to a place no one expected, a quiet storage facility on East Tallmadge Avenue. East Tallmadge Avenue stretches across Akron like a quiet thread of industry. Along it sits a long row of metal storage units, identical in shape and size, each one holding the private histories of its renters. Furniture, memories, forgotten keepsakes. On an ordinary day, the place felt routine, a background to everyday life. But on the morning of June 19th, 2019, that stillness shifted. What was once ordinary became a scene that would change the course of an investigation. The self-storage facility had a caretaker who prided himself on knowing the comings and goings of his tenants. In a space where each door looked the same, familiarity was his measure of security. When he began noticing strange activity around certain units, it unsettled him. Late-night visits, odd movements between lockers, and the sound of a vehicle engine when the gates should have been closed. The pattern was small, but it lingered like a riddle waiting to be solved. On that particular morning, as the caretaker reviewed overnight logs, a small unease urged him to check the surveillance system. The cameras, mounted high and steady, captured more than most realized. As he watched the footage, a figure appeared. A man moved repeatedly between two neighboring storage units under the cover of darkness. He opened one, disappeared inside, then returned moments later, carrying items whose shapes could not be clearly seen. It was an action that seemed routine, yet the hour and the frequency did not fit. Something felt wrong. The caretaker alerted authorities, and detectives from the Akron Police Department arrived to review the footage. The man's actions were deliberate, but his movements revealed nervous energy. He appeared to know the layout of the units, as if he had been there many times before. One of the units was registered to a woman named Mary Kay Katie Wohlfarth, who had been missing for 2 days. The other belonged to a family with no immediate connection to her. That simple detail stood out, and investigators decided to act. Police obtained a warrant and returned to the facility later that same day. The air was heavy with anticipation, a kind of silence that often comes before truth is uncovered. Officers moved through the narrow aisles of metal doors, their footsteps echoing against the concrete floor. When they reached the unit in question, they cut through the lock and lifted the door. Inside was a scene that confirmed every fear her family had held. Katie Wohlfarth's body was discovered inside the unit. Her remains showed clear evidence of assault and trauma. Detectives described the atmosphere as cold, still, and tragic. In the narrow space meant to store possessions, a life had ended in violence. The Summit County Medical Examiner's Office later determined the cause of death to be blunt force trauma to the head and neck. The forensic pathologist confirmed additional evidence of sexual assault before death. These findings added depth to the tragedy, revealing the cruelty of the act but offering no explanation for why it occurred. There were no signs of a struggle beyond the evidence on her body. It appeared she had been attacked quickly, leaving little chance for defense. Police immediately sealed the scene. Technicians photographed every detail, from the position of the body to the smallest trace of debris on the floor. They collected fingerprints, fibers, and samples that could later reveal who had been inside. Outside, yellow tape lined the perimeter of the facility. Curious residents watched from a distance, whispering quietly, unsure of what to make of the sudden police presence in their neighborhood. Detectives began to piece together a timeline. Katie had last been seen alive only days earlier. Her van was missing, and now her body had been found in a unit she rented, inside a facility she visited often. The question was not only what happened, but how someone had gained access to her private space. The security. Logs showed no forced entry, which suggested familiarity. Whoever had placed her there knew both her schedule and her surroundings. As news spread, the city's calm exterior began to show cracks. For many in Akron, the discovery felt personal. Storage facilities were meant to be safe, impersonal places for belongings, not settings for violence. The idea that such an act could unfold behind a locked metal door left many unsettled. The investigation pressed forward with quiet determination. Detectives traced vehicle records, interviewed neighbors, and reviewed security footage from nearby streets. The footage captured the same man seen earlier, moving between the two storage units and later driving a vehicle that matched the description of Katie's missing van. Every detail pointed toward premeditation, though the motive remained hidden. Forensic evidence would later help link the man on camera to the crime. His image, captured in grainy black and white, became the key to identifying who had last been near Katie Wohlfarth. The case that began with a missing person report was now a homicide investigation. In the days that followed, the storage facility became a place of both answers and questions. The caretaker who first raised the alarm spoke softly when recalling that morning. He said it began like any other day, until the moment he realized that something about the ordinary had changed forever. Inside those rows of metal doors, one woman's life
There is a lady that has been missing. I don't know if a report has been filed.
Okay.
Her name is Katie Wohlfarth. My reason for calling is that her rental unit has been entered by another individual. We have it on surveillance tape.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, that individual has no permission, reason, authority to go in there.
Okay, so Katie how do you know she's missing?
Well, her partner, a man by the name of Dave, they both rent units from us. And he came in Monday evening, asked Richard, the other fellow that's here, if he had seen Katie Wohlfarth. And Richard said no. And Dave came in again this morning, and I started looking for the security tapes.
Small handyman jobs for her, simple tasks around her home and property. To those who knew her, Katie had always been trusting, generous, and willing to help people who needed work. In her world of antiques and restoration, kindness was a form of currency. Yet that same kindness placed her near a man whose struggles ran deeper than she could have known. When detectives began searching for Katie's missing van, the investigation took a decisive turn. Patrol officers located the vehicle parked at a local lot not far from where Olson lived. Inside, police found personal items belonging to Katie. Witnesses in the area reported seeing a man driving the van in the days following her disappearance. The description matched Olson. What had begun as suspicion now became evidence. Police brought Olson in for questioning. During the interview, he appeared weary, his voice low, his answers uneven. Under direct questioning, he admitted to being at the storage facility on the night of June 17th. Confronted with forensic results and video evidence, Olson confessed to the murder and sexual assault of Katie Wohlfarth.
So your storage unit up there up on North Hill.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
that's your dad.
it's my dad's, yeah, anymore.
Who has access to it?
Me and my dad.
When was the last time you were there?
I was up there either just this morning or yesterday morning. I can't remember what the actual day was.
Now, are you aware that that storage area, they've got all kinds of cameras?
Oh, yeah, because of the theft. Yeah.
Were you up there Monday?
What's today?
Today's Wednesday.
Monday.
2 days ago.
I've been up there sporadically throughout the last week. I don't know exactly which day, but Wednesday. Oh, I think I was up there Monday. Now.
Is she looking like?
Yeah, that's Dave and Kathleen? Katie? That's the same name, right?
When was the last time you saw her?
Probably just Saturday, Sunday, something like that.
So we started working it. It's giving me the opportunity to give us your narrative.
So stupid.
What happened? She would give you some money. She would give you a job. We have mistakes.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna help you. I mean, you can't feel good holding this up.
No. Just
Tell us what
snapped. Something came over me. My ex-girlfriend, dude, she was a downfall. She was only being my ex-girlfriend, but she made me a different person because of her toxic, narcissistic ways. I was mentally, verbally, emotionally abused. Just snapped and he said something about my You know what?
Well, tell us what
You know what? You just want to say.
That's like, well, this is your narrative. This is your chance to say for your story.
Yeah, well, I just.
Are you just a cold-blooded,
No, I stand.
homicidal maniac?
Not all.
Or heat of the moment?
And you're snapped.
So take us through it.
Yeah, so just went over there, you're on the head. That was it.
What you know,
Yes.
like a metal pipe, walking stick,
Something.
wood.
No, it's actually a piece of fireplace. Just you want to I just saw it, grabbed it.
She didn't make her. Where are you?
No, I just tried to get around the house. It was dumb. She's never done it. Obviously, I've been in jail for in my life, but it's snapped, man. I've been so emotionally, verbally abused. You have no idea. I got a mother who was staying with 35 years old. So there's my narrative.
I have determined will protect the public and punish you without imposing an unnecessary burden on state or local resources, analyzing all the factors I'm required to analyze, including the seriousness factors, the recidivism factors, all other factors before the court, following the agreement that you folks reached. As part of that agreement, it's been stated very clearly on the record by both the state of Ohio, by Attorney O'Brien, and by you, Mr. Olson. The agreement was that you would serve a period of incarceration without the potential of parole or any other type of release. On a conviction of aggravated murder, you will be sentenced to a life sentence without the possibility of parole. On count 5, the court is going to impose a sentence of 18 months. Count 4, 18 months. Count 3, 12 months. Count 2, 11 years. Those sentences will be served consecutive, not concurrent. The court finds that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future crimes, not disproportionate to the seriousness of your conduct and to the danger you pose to the public. At least 2 of the offenses were committed as part of one or more courses of conduct, and the harm caused was so great or unusual that no single prison term for any of the offenses committed as part of the course of conduct adequately would reflect the seriousness of your conduct. With that, I'm required to inform you that 11-year sentence imposed on the felony of the 5th degree is the minimum stated term. As you know, and I went over with you at the time of the plea, the maximum term on that is 50% in addition to it, which would be 16 and a half years. Upon your release on that, you would be subject to a 5-year mandatory post-release control time frame. But in any event, I do want to reiterate that on the record that the minimum stated prison term on the felony of the 1st degree, and of course I have imposed that consecutive to the sentence for life, but it's 11 years. The maximum sentence is 16 and a half years. I'm required to state that on the record. As part of your sentence, you must obey all laws, refrain from any offensive conduct, follow all the rules of the department. You're not allowed to use drugs and alcohol. It can serve as a violation of supervision at some point. You are entitled to jail time credit that will be calculated and included in the final entry. Relating to post-release control, as you know, we've gone over multiple times. On the charge and conviction of rape, 5-year mandatory post-release control time frame. Counts 3 through 5, up to a 3-year discretionary time frame. I've gone over the ramifications of that supervision with you here today in more than one method. Further, I don't believe, most likely based on the reality of the circumstances of the state of Ohio, would have requested restitution, but just so that I'm clear, the state of Ohio did not request restitution. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, it will not be ordered. I've analyzed your present and future ability to pay costs and fees. At this particular time, I will waive those. As part of your conviction in this case, I am now required to inform you about, as I went over with you earlier, about 2 registration requirements. We'll start with the sex offender registration first. Just so that you know, Mr. Olson, although I've gone over the information with you, I will now go over it in detail with you. After I do that, you have to acknowledge on the record that I've read it to you, you understand it, and then you'll sign off on it. So with that, Mr. Olson, you've been convicted now of an offense, and you will be designated a Tier 3 sex offender. You are required to register in person with the sheriff of the county in which you established residency within 3 days of coming into that county, or temporary domicile for more than 3 days. You're also required to register in person with the sheriff of the county in which you established a place of education immediately upon coming into that county. If you establish a place of education in another state, but maintain a residence or temporary domicile here, you would be required to register in person with the sheriff or other appropriate official in that other state immediately upon coming into that state. You are also required to register in person with the sheriff of the county in which you establish a place of employment if you have been employed for more than 3 days or for an aggregate of 14 days in a calendar year. If you establish a place of employment in another state but maintain a residence or temporary domicile here, you are also required to register in person with the sheriff or other appropriate official in that other state if you have been employed for more than 3 days or for an aggregate of 14 days in a calendar year. Employment includes volunteer services. You're required to provide to the sheriff temporary lodging information, including address and length of stay, if your absence will be for 7 days or more.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story that deserves to be heard.